All right, well, I never really promised you this was going to be a budget build, did I? Anyway, I think, at least for a little while, I'm kind of done throwing money at this thing. All right, well, we got the clutch on the flywheel. So this is that alignment tool that you stick in there, goes into the smooth end of the crankshaft, and then the gears line up with the clutch to keep it centered while you're pushing the pressure plate assembly back on it. So I did go out and get me some new grade 8 bolts. Those are 3/8 by 3/8 16 thread by 1 inch long. So I have not torqued them down yet. I got to go upstairs and get the torque settings for them, but clutch is back in place, and we should be next get those all torqued, and then Bellhousing goes back on. All right, well, we're looking down into the bowels of the Bellhousing here, and you'll notice I have patched up my holes with some JB Weld, did a little flat black inside of there. So this has been taped to my counter for a month now, so I wouldn't lose it. This sits right there in that little, you can see there's a little spot for it there. So that goes in there, and then let's get my throwout bearing lever here. So this is my new throwout bearing. It came with a new plate there to slip it on, and then I did buy a new little inner spring here. So that spring is here, and that's gonna kind of hold this guy on that ball bearing in there. So you can see that's our pivot point for this thing. So now what I'm going to do is kind of flip this over while I'm holding this in place, and then I'll show you the other side where we're going to hook that spring. So let me set you here for a second. So now if we hold this, I'm going to come up here. Not sure if you're going to be able to see it very well, but there is my spring, and it's going to go right here in this little hole. So we're basically just going to grab that guy with the needle nose pliers and bring it up and go over that. And there we go. There's our spring in place to hold our throwout bearing lever in place. And now over here on the outside of this thing, I've got the new boot to go in there. This is the boot, and when we look inside of it, there's a hole right here on the one end. So as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking that the hole needs to be on the bottom side here. And then we'll fit that thing in place in that hole right there. So cannot do that with one hand, so let me set you down. I'll come back and show you what it looks like when I get it put together. All right, well, so one thing that got in the way is these are in the Bellhousing, these kind of alignment pins, and there's a set in my new block over here. So obviously we'll take the new ones, so I need to pop these guys out. Now the hole goes all the way through, so I suppose if I'm having trouble getting them out of there, I can probably drive them out with my drift punch from the other end. But for now, I'm just gonna grab them, see if I can just pull them out. And if not, then I might have to drive them out, and then those hold everything in place and kind of line it up while you're getting your bolts on. So I'll come back when I got those out. All right, well, I got those out. I just basically, they're just a split sleeve that goes down in there. This one had a little oil on it, looks like. But what I did is I basically just put them in a vise and kind of crushed them down until they started to break loose, and then I could turn them and wiggle them a little bit. I got them out. So I've now just cleaned out both of these holes. You can see they're kind of chamfered or sloped at the top to kind of guide those in. So I think that'll work just fine. Set the new ones in there and we'll start to get this back in place. Well, if I built Jeeps for a living, I'd probably be a little better at this than I am. But anyway, so I got the bell housing all on there, and then I realized that this big long piece that I can't really get it much further up out of here, but it's this round piece that I was thinking kind of went at the bottom of the bell housing. No, it goes at the top here. So those little pins, one of them came out with the bell housing after I pushed it in there. The other one stayed in, so I kind of had to bend this out a little bit over it. But I think I figured out, so then this little piece goes right here. So we've got the 4 screw holes there. But obviously you're not going to get that bell housing on with that piece there. So I'm going to bolt the bell housing back up and then put these pieces back in here, and looks like there's, you know, like a bolt there that'll bolt that bottom piece to it and so forth. So I did not really do a very good job of taking video of this when I was taking it apart. I was just kind of in the throes of ripping stuff apart, and should have paid a little closer attention. So anyway, I got it figured out now, and hopefully if you're watching and doing something similar, I'll save you some trouble. So you, technically speaking, you know, this flat plate in here that's got the big hole for the starter to go through, it almost could go on before your flywheel even goes on, and it's just sitting there. Now it will slip over the gap down in there, so it's not like it has to be in there before your flywheel goes in, but you can see it's obviously that's where it's supposed to go. So I will now do pass number 2 of getting the bell housing back up here. So the first pass had to be undone, and we'll do her again. All right, well, I did want to show you how everything goes together, which I should have, again, taken some pictures of this before I was taking it apart. So this is that separate piece that was separated from the rest of the main part of the bell housing. You can see everything lines up nice and neat. Let's go around to the other side. Okay, so we're over here on the other side, and you can see it's a little dark over here, but this is the hole that our starter goes through, and these are the 2 bolt holes for our starter. So we'll tighten this one down, and those are all down. And then now we're ready to get our oil pan back in here. Well, it seems like I'd probably get a lot more done on this thing if I didn't have to sleep and eat. So, but it's getting about time to go eat something, and then it's dark 30 out there, so it's about time to put her away for the night. So anyway, let me show you where we got. So bell housing is all installed. You can see a little better here now, that inner spring, that's the holds that little ball in place there. I got my boot in place, and again I put the opening towards the front, and then this is the return spring here. And then as we come up to the front, I got the timing cover started on there. I haven't got my big long bolts sorted out here yet, and my new water pump is on there. So everything's not all bolted down tight, so it's not time to quite yet put the oil pan on, but that will be the next thing. So that front kind of rubber gasket goes here, which is why you do have to have this timing cover on before you put your oil pan on. So, but that'll be next. We'll button this thing up. This is where our fuel pump goes. This is obviously our bottom radiator hose. You know all that. I do have a new seal to put in here for the water pump pulley, or the bottom pulley. And then over on the other side, back side of here, is our oil pump. So, yeah, I think this is probably a pretty good place to leave it for the night. So we'll wrap it up. And when you see me next, I hope to be getting that oil pan put on here, and then we'll put those engine mounts on. They go right about here. And then if we get to that point, then I think we're ready to either make the transmission up while it's hanging like this, which might not be too tough to do now with that sitting on our little cart there. Maybe I can swing this over and kind of lower the engine down low enough to feed that shaft in there and get that all bolted up tight. And then, you know where this is going, right back over there in that Jeep. So anyway, for tonight, it's not going in there because we're done. But that'll be the next order of business here. So we'll see you when we do that.